Imagine coming home to find your HOA president shoving a key into your front door lock, claiming she has the right to inspect your house. Now picture her smugly calling the cops on you, certain she's about to win, only for the door to swing open and my wife, in full police uniform, to step out. What happened next silenced Karen and the whole neighborhood for good. It all began on an ordinary evening, the kind of day when you expect nothing more dramatic than deciding what to cook for dinner. I was standing in my front yard, holding a garden hose, watering the flowers and enjoying a little peace after a long day at work. The sun was setting, the air was calm, and for a brief moment, life felt perfectly quiet. That's when I heard the sound of footsteps, quick, sharp, and unmistakably angry. I didn't even have to look up to know who it was. The infamous HOA president of our neighborhood, the woman everyone half-jokingly and half-fearfully called Karen, was marching straight toward me, clutching her ever-present clipboard like it was a weapon. She wasted no time. Before I could even greet her, she launched into her latest complaint. "Your car," she began in that shrill, self-righteous tone she had perfected, "is sticking 2 inches beyond your driveway. 2 whole inches. Do you realize that's a violation of HOA regulations?" I blinked, trying to process the absurdity of what she was saying. 2 inches. Not 2 feet, not even a bumper blocking the sidewalk, 2 inches. I wanted to laugh, but I knew better. Karen wasn't the kind of person who took laughter well. Before I could respond, she shifted her attention to my house and pointed dramatically at my living room window. "And another thing, those curtains. They're supposed to be white. White. Not off-white, not cream, not eggshell. White. You agreed to follow HOA rules when you moved here, and you're breaking them." She spoke with the kind of authority you'd expect from a judge handing down a serious sentence, not a neighbor nitpicking curtain shades. I stood there, still holding the garden hose, water dripping onto the lawn as I stared at her. For a moment, I honestly thought she might be joking. Who in their right mind obsesses over the difference between white and off-white curtains? But the look on her face told me she was dead serious. I took a slow breath and tried to keep my cool. "Look," I said lightly, "the curtains are fine, and I'll make sure the car is pulled in properly. No harm done, right?" I gave her a smile, hoping it would soften her mood, maybe even get her to walk away. But if there's one thing I learned about Karen that day, it's that she never came looking for solutions. She came looking for control. My attempt at politeness only seemed to fuel her anger. She muttered something under her breath about people who don't respect the rules and scribbled furiously on her clipboard, as if writing me a ticket for daring to exist. Neighbors had warned me about her before, but this was my first real taste of just how far she could go. And as annoying as her rant about curtains and driveway inches seemed in that moment, I had no idea it was just the beginning. This was only the opening act in what would become one of the wildest encounters I've ever had with another human being. The day after the curtain and driveway drama, I figured things would calm down. I honestly thought Karen had gotten her little burst of power out of her system and would move on to someone else. After all, in a neighborhood full of houses, I couldn't be the only one who was guilty of having slightly off-white curtains. But I underestimated her persistence. Or maybe, I should say, her obsession. I pulled into the driveway after work, tired and ready to collapse on the couch. As I got out of my car, something immediately felt off. The front door was shaking ever so slightly, like someone was fiddling with the lock. My stomach tightened. I walked closer, and my suspicion was confirmed. There she was. Karen. Standing at my front door, holding a set of keys, trying to wedge one into the lock as if she owned the place. "Excuse me, what the hell are you doing?" I shouted, my voice louder than I intended. Karen didn't even flinch. She turned her head slowly, her expression calm and condescending, like I was the one in the wrong. "I'm the HOA president," she said flatly. "I have the right to inspect your home whenever I feel it's necessary. You've already violated multiple rules, and I need to make sure there aren't more infractions inside." For a moment, I was too stunned to respond. Was she serious? Did she actually believe she had the legal right to enter my house? I felt my pulse quicken, my hands curling into fists at my sides. "That's trespassing," I snapped. You don't have any right to be on my property, let alone trying to break into my house. She scoffed, like I had just said something ridiculous. Oh please, she sneered. You signed the HOA agreement. That gives me the authority to enforce the rules. If you have nothing to hide, why are you so defensive? The sheer audacity of it almost made me laugh, but anger was bubbling up too quickly for humor. I took a step closer, lowering my voice but making sure every word was clear. Put the key down. Now. For a brief second, I saw hesitation flash across her face. She wasn't expecting me to stand my ground. Still, she muttered something about ungrateful homeowners and reluctantly pulled the key out of the lock. But she didn't leave. Instead, she stood there scribbling furiously on her clipboard, as if my refusal to let her trespass was yet another violation she could add to her growing list. I knew arguing with her would be pointless, so I did the only thing that made sense. I walked inside, shut the door behind me, and immediately told my wife what had just happened. Her eyes narrowed, her jaw tightened, and in that instant I realized something. Karen had just picked a fight she couldn't possibly win. Little did Karen know, her bold attempt at HOA authority had just set the stage for her most humiliating moment yet. After the door incident, I honestly thought Karen would cool off. She had been embarrassed, caught red-handed trying to force her way into my home. Any reasonable person would have backed off, maybe even apologized. But Karen? She wasn't wired like that. The more resistance she met, the more determined she seemed to prove herself in charge. It was as if being HOA president had turned into her personal badge of power, and she couldn't stand the thought of anyone defying her. Later that evening, I was sitting in the living room with my wife, still venting about what had happened, when we heard it, a series of loud, heavy knocks on the front door. Not the kind of polite knock a neighbor might use, but the kind that makes your stomach sink instantly. I glanced at my wife, and we both knew something was wrong. When I opened the door, 2 uniformed police officers were standing there. Their expressions were serious, professional, and I could tell right away they were here for more than just a casual check-in. One of them spoke up, "Sir, we received a call about a possible harassment situation involving you and a member of your HOA." For a split second, I was too stunned to reply. Harassment? Me? I stepped outside and saw her, Karen, standing proudly across the street with her arms crossed and a smug smile plastered on her face. She looked like a queen watching her soldiers carry out orders, utterly confident that she was about to win. I finally found my voice. Wait, what? She's the one who tried to break into my house. I protested, my tone sharp with frustration. But Karen cut in before the officers could respond. She raised her voice theatrically, making sure the entire neighborhood could hear. He threatened me. He yelled at me and made me feel unsafe. And he's constantly breaking HOA rules. I had no choice but to call the authorities. It was surreal. She was spinning this web of lies right there, without a shred of hesitation, like she'd been rehearsing it for weeks. My neighbors peeked out from behind curtains and from porches, watching the scene unfold. To them, it must have looked like just another episode in the ongoing Karen show. The officers, to their credit, kept calm and professional. They asked me to explain my side, but I could already sense the danger of the situation. False reports might be ridiculous, but they can still drag you into trouble, waste time, and create unnecessary stress. Karen knew this, and that's exactly why she did it. She wanted leverage. She wanted to scare me into submission by using the police as her personal enforcement squad. Inside, my wife had been listening closely. She hadn't revealed herself yet, and I could see her watching carefully, her jaw tightening as Karen's lies piled higher and higher. Karen had no idea what was coming. She thought she was about to humiliate me in front of the whole block, but the tables were about to turn in a way she could never have predicted. The officers stood on my porch, their notepads ready, clearly trying to sort out who was telling the truth. I could see the hesitation in their eyes. They'd heard Karen's side, they'd heard a bit of mine, but now it was a matter of weighing credibility. And let's be honest, when someone is shouting "I feel unsafe" and pointing at you like you're a criminal, it doesn't exactly paint you in the best light. That was exactly Karen's strategy, overwhelmed the situation with drama, hoping no one would stop to think rationally. She was across the street, arms crossed, smirking as if she had already won. It was infuriating. I was standing there, trying to keep calm, knowing full well that if I lost my temper, it would only make me look guilty. And she knew that too. That smug little grin on her face said it all. She thought she had me cornered. Then, with perfect timing, I turned to the officers and said, "Would you mind if I brought my wife out here to explain what happened?" She saw everything. They nodded, probably expecting some nervous housewife to step outside and corroborate my story. What they didn't expect was the sound of boots on the floor, the clink of equipment, and the door opening to reveal my wife in full police uniform. Badge gleaming, holster at her side, her expression calm but commanding. She didn't say a word at first, she just stepped out and stood next to me. The shift in atmosphere was instant. The two officers on my porch straightened up immediately, their entire posture changing. They snapped a respectful nod toward her, clearly recognizing a fellow officer. And then I looked across the street. For the first time since I'd known her, Karen didn't look confident. She didn't look smug. She looked like someone had just pulled the rug out from under her. Her eyes widened, her mouth opened slightly, and for once, she had no words. My wife spoke evenly, her voice professional and authoritative. "Officers," she said, "this woman has been harassing my husband for days. Earlier, I witnessed her attempting to enter our home without permission. And now she has wasted your time with a false report." The officers exchanged quick glances. It was like everything clicked for them in that moment. They weren't just hearing my side of the story anymore, they were hearing it from one of their own. Suddenly, Karen's dramatic performance didn't seem so convincing. Karen tried to recover, her voice shaky but still clinging to that fake confidence. I was just trying to enforce HOA rules. He's lying." But the damage was already done. Her power play had backfired spectacularly. She wasn't the one in charge anymore. The authority she pretended to have as HOA president crumbled the moment real authority walked out of that door in a police uniform. And as I stood there, watching Karen's face drain of color, I realized I didn't have to say another word. The uniform did all the talking for me. For a long moment, the entire street seemed frozen in silence. The two officers stood at attention, their respect clearly shifted toward my wife. I was just a homeowner defending myself, but she was one of them, a fellow officer who carried authority that Karen could never hope to match. The smug grin that Karen had worn so confidently only minutes before had completely vanished. She looked smaller now, deflated, as if her title of HOA president suddenly didn't mean anything. My wife kept her posture calm and professional, but her words were sharp and deliberate. "Ma'am," she said firmly, turning her gaze directly at Karen, "you need to understand something. What you did earlier, trying to unlock my front door, is trespassing. That's a criminal offense. And calling these officers with a false report? That's filing a false claim, which is also punishable by law. These aren't just HOA squabbles. These are real legal issues." The officers nodded in agreement, their faces now much more serious. One of them even pulled out his notepad, as if preparing to write something down. Karen's eyes darted nervously from one face to the other, her confidence unraveling by the second. She opened her mouth to argue, but all that came out was a stammer. I wasn't. I didn't mean," her voice trailed off into nothing. The sight was almost surreal. This was the same woman who had stormed into my yard the day before, barking orders about curtains and driveway inches like she was a general in battle. The same woman who had stood across the street minutes earlier, smirking like she was about to win some grand victory. And now here she was, trembling, her voice weak, her hands clutching that clipboard like a lifeline. My wife didn't let up. She took a step closer, her tone calm but commanding. "Being an HOA president doesn't give you the right to invade someone's property. It doesn't give you the right to misuse police resources because you're upset about curtains. If you continue this behavior, you won't just be dealing with HOA complaints, you'll be dealing with actual charges. Do you understand me?" Karen nodded quickly, her face pale, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why, yes. The officers didn't bother hiding their disapproval. One of them spoke up, addressing Karen directly. "Ma'am, you need to stop wasting our time with false reports. If this happens again, there will be consequences." That was it. The final nail in the coffin of her self-constructed authority. Karen, the self-proclaimed queen of the neighborhood, had been stripped of her power in front of the very people she thought she controlled. She turned on her heel and walked away without another word, her shoulders hunched, her clipboard dangling uselessly at her side. From that day forward, Karen avoided me entirely. She never tried to police my curtains again, never dared to step onto my property, and most importantly, never called the cops on me again. The neighborhood still talks about it, laughing at how the mighty HOA queen crumbled the second she faced someone with real authority. And me? I didn't have to raise my voice or prove my case. My wife's uniform, her calm authority, and her unwavering presence did everything for me.